Hi, everybody. I'm Dan Roos. I'm founder and chief instigator of Openly Disruptive. Thanks for having me with you on your journey. The purpose of this video is to show you how to use the worksheets that I use working with clients and friends to dive into how we actually turn this mind map that you've seen me create into something to power your innovation system. So we want to really think about how to help your innovation system get to scale. And that's going to be about really understanding it and understanding the engine that could power it. And so I'm going to show you some ways that we build, starting with this first initial worksheet on that. So let's get started. I've created a fictional company that we'll use as an example. So this is a company called CarePath. CarePath, and by the way, if you don't remember exactly how we do these worksheets, look in the comments. You'll see a link back to another video that shows you how we actually come up with these comments, or how we come up with the concept to do this first exercise. But if you remember right, the goal of this is to produce a very simple vision that you can use to rapidly test what you're doing internally and externally, and build on it, and really find out what the moving pieces are. So what I did was I came up with a company. This is CarePath. I apologize in advance if there's an actual company called CarePath. If there is out there, this was not at all based on anything you're doing. But CarePath is a company. They're a SaaS company. They provide a data product that helps in specialty care. So it's kind of like an EHR and a practice management system and a revenue cycle management approach, all bundled into one to help run a business for specialty care providers. They know that those providers that they're already serving, that they have lots of instances of people using this in specialties like dermatology or orthopedics or all kinds of different specialties. What they know from that is that there are patients and the caregivers of these patients, so the spouses or partners or home health aides or family members or whoever, that are on complex care journeys with some of these people. And so we're going to, CarePath is bringing them together. So what we've done is they want to build on that for this AI age that we're in. And, you've probably heard this before. So how are we going to make sure that our SaaS product is both effective in this AI age, and maybe how do we actually create a lot more value? So they start investigating it. So they say, we do the exercise, and what we come up with is, for CarePath, what we've identified is we're going to bring together these providers and the patients and caregivers on complex care journeys. What we've identified also that they have that's really interesting is they have 25 years of data about patients on these journeys to really be able to look at that and say, what do those patients need? What kind of care do they get? What kind of coordination of care do they need? There's a lot of data in that 25 years of serving these people and serving these providers. The other thing that they're going to do is, rather than just an API to expose that data, they're going to really think about how they can build some kind of data marketplace for agentic app builders. So what they're going to do is they're going to say, we're going to accept that there's all of these agentic players out there that are going to be flooding this. We're going to really stand on what we know about what these patients and the providers need. That we're going to be the source of truth for all of these people that are out there, that we think that the apps are actually going to be potentially commodities. So whether this be a model protocol or another way to expose that, but it's going to be a framework that they think that they can own. CarePath thinks they can own. And why are they doing this? Because they think that there's going to be this personalized care coordination opportunity for everybody, that we can go from this fairly clunky way of using an EHR to serve people to really get to personalized care that really serves the patients better and ultimately serves the providers better because the providers are demonstrating better value. So that's what they come up with, and if you recall, so then we just turned this into a Mad Lib, and so we said, so for specialty care providers, complex care journey patients, and caregivers, we're going to use 25 years of data, this one-to-one data marketplace to create personalized care coordination for everyone. And they're going to have a lot of meetings with a lot of different people, with providers, with regulators, with all kinds of people, with payers and everything. But they need to have a lot of conversations, and that's really the purpose of this, is not to be perfectly right, but to actually go out there and say, so we're going to give you enough so that you know what we're doing. Now we really need to know something. So they're going to say, we'd like a meeting to discuss this, that we're bringing this together. And they're using this as a way to open doors to get those meetings. So easy enough so far, right? Well, what does that give us? Well, what it gives us is CarePath doesn't really know that much right now, but they want to know more. So from that, they can go out there and they can have all kinds of conversations. And when I work with clients, here's the next logical step to that. And we actually do this as part of a road mapping exercise where we're saying, so same thing, we just transfer this over. So remember, here's what we're doing. And so for specialty care provider, these complex care journey patients and their caregivers, 25 years of data, and so on. And so what we're going to say is, where we are right now. Well, what we have right now is we have a SaaS offering and let's just say that they're serving that to 7,000 specialist providers. That's where they're starting from. But what we want to do is we want to actually start painting a picture of what success looks like and be able to answer some questions along the way. So we start with, what is a first way that you might look at success? And what they might say is, actually, we think that there's an opportunity to get monthly recurring revenue from complex care coordination. So what they want to do is they want to really get away from just having it be based on the provider to thinking about what's the recurring revenue opportunity from serving complex care coordination. And then they go out and they start having conversations, and they're talking to these providers and finding out what are some of the opportunities. And so some people might say, well, in ortho, we actually have this thing of when we do these kinds of procedures, there's a value-based care opportunity, or a value-based reimbursement available to us that we can't yet serve. Well, that's kind of interesting. Or they might say, in oncology, there's a real problem of you just have to constantly onboard people into this, and we really need a unified onboarding, or whatever. But they're going to tell you whatever, and then if you talk to other people, if you talk to patient advocates and people like that, they're going to say, well, there's really actually this need for transportation coordination. If you can solve that problem because people with these conditions can't drive, and they're doing this ad hoc, and here's all of these issues with it. Or somebody else might say it's actually multi-specialist, whatever. So what's going to happen is, multi-specialist coordination. And so you're going to get all of that stuff that you didn't know before, and you can start pulling all that together. Then they're going to start saying, well, how would you measure this success? Or how would you measure, what would the obstacles be along the way? And, somebody might tell you, well, one way to measure this success is reduced days away from work. So if the patient can actually reduce the number of days that they're away from work while they're doing this, or that would be a huge win. That would be something that would, payers would start paying attention to that, especially self-funded payers. Somebody else might say, well, what we really need is we want to see just-in-time lab work. So lab work that gets done just in time before a visit so that it's all coordinated so that everybody has all of that. And so the percentage of the lab work that's delivered just in time. And so you're going to find out all of these things. And you're also going to get people to say, well, really the problem with this is Medicaid, Centers for Medicaid and Medicare policies and regulation about this. Or you're going to see something that says, well, really the problem is that we need to integrate between multiple EHRs and practice and revenue cycle management systems, or conflicting data standards. So you're going to get all of those things. And see, I'm just making these up just based on just this little bit of thing. This is a way to prompt people to do this. Because then what you're able to do is you're able to have all of these conversations, and what you're going to be able to do is you'll start being able to form a better idea of what does this data marketplace look like? How, you're going to be actually gathering requirements so that you can start defining these things. Once we do that, then you can start doing other things. We can start saying, let's take some of these ideas and let's build them empathy maps. So if we really want to dive into what is it that these specialty care providers need, let's talk a little bit about who they are and what do they actually need? What do they need to do? What are their pains? What would be a gain for them? And we can dive deeply into this with them and actually build a really strong ICP. We can also do a lot of what do they need to do? What do they need to say? And we can actually start building more of those requirements. We can also start looking at scenarios. We don't actually know how this is going to take off. We can use a different worksheet, and we can start saying, how is this world changing? So we can say, well, we know that this AI thing is coming because everybody's been talking about that, but what's actually talking in this area? And maybe we can say, well, there's an increase year over year in these kinds of patients on these kinds of journeys. And that might be really intriguing because we might be able to say, here are those conditions where we're starting to actually see some things based on this mapping. And then we can say, well, so what does success look like if you're doing this? And you can start saying, oh, well, like this monthly recurring revenue, actually becomes the method for value-based care and value-based reimbursement. If that opportunity is flat, so if these things don't actually turn out, say, oh, okay, so then we're going to pivot to other conditions. And if the opportunity shrinks, so if it just doesn't, not only does it not take off, but it actually shrinks, say, well, we still have our SaaS. And that then that nobody's making money on this Agentic thing because of whatever else. And so over and over again, we can do that. And gradually you'll see that we would be able to do an exercise to really look at how will this grow over time. And so we can actually start saying, so we're going to start at 10 providers in one specialty, and we're going to think about how we build this thing out. What are going to be the eras of CarePath as we get on this journey? And then how would we measure success? And maybe by the end, then we're saying, hey, we think we're going to be a category leader enabling personalized care coordination for 10,000 providers and 1 million patients and caregivers in four or more complex care scenarios. That's a mouthful, but you're really going to be, like CarePath is like, wow, we could really actually be the enabler of all of this care. And what would that do is, we think there's probably an opportunity for $50 a month in recurring revenue. And that's just a number made up. I don't know what that really would be per patient served. But, to think about how you could actually be building that as a thing. And so the last thing is you might then start saying, so how are we actually going to build this growth engine? And here's just a way that we think about how to build this growth engine. So like the growth engine to get you to level up from when we were looking at from this level to this level to this level to this level to this level, what are the things that we're doing? But what's the flywheel that gets this going? What's the engine that powers this? Is this how is that go-to-market work? How does that scaling work? And actually start identifying some of those things to actually build that out. Because over time, what you're going to do is you are going to come back to this was the starting point that lets you learn a lot of information from the market very quickly to be able to get to your first roadmap, to your first idea of how you're, where you're going and what success looks like, that you can really understand the stakeholders, that you can understand the mechanism that you're building to connect those stakeholders together, that you can understand the possible futures so that you can hedge against the risk that's really out there, and actually start building an understanding of what you're building and how you're building it over time. So I hope this example has been good. I'm going to put up some other videos for some other examples, but I hope this one has helped you understand how to use this very basic structure to get to really understanding how to grow your vision into something that has huge impact. Thanks a lot for sharing. You can contact me at dan@openlydisruptive.com or at openlydisruptive.com or find me on LinkedIn. I hope this has been useful. Please give me your feedback if you'd like to see an example from another industry. Love to have it. Thanks a lot. Keep disrupting.